Hello folks, my name's Christian Barker and this is the little interview series that I am calling Banter with Barker. And today, as a guest, I have a gentleman that I have known for a little over a decade, I think now, a fellow by the name of Simon Crompton. Now Simon runs a men's style online publication, blog as they used to be called Permanent Style. And Simon is joining us. The lords of the internet and the Wi-Fi be willing, we will be connected in a moment. Simon, good to be speaking with you. How are you doing?
Yeah, you're good, thank you, mate. Very good. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, we're surviving. You know, lots of time indoors, but yeah, we're getting by. How about you?
Yeah, good. What's the lockdown situation in Singapore then at the moment?
It's kind of easing up. So where things are improving, we were, pretty much locked away for quite some time there. But round about a month ago, we're now allowed to have 5 random people over into our homes, which is quite nice.
Random people. They have to be random people. Yeah, you can't.
They have to be random. Just people I invite, randomly off the internet, off like chat roulette or something. Yeah, exactly. No, and we can go out to restaurants for a table of 5. You've just got to venture out wearing a mask everywhere. So that's still going on. But yeah, I don't know. I've been reading talk that hopefully soon we're going to be allowed to sort of visit maybe Malaysia, maybe New Zealand, even talk of potentially being able to go to Australia sometime soon, which would be nice for me. So yeah.
So you can't go anywhere at the moment, really?
Pardon me?
You can't go anywhere at the moment?
It's a bit like Escape from New York, and I'm Snake Plissken. Yeah, there's no way off this island. Or I don't know, it's like The Prisoner, that British TV series from the 1960s. Yes, there is no escaping. But I think people like ourselves are relatively fortunate, aren't we, in that we can carry on our jobs from home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, very lucky in that respect. No, I think it's a lot of friends who've struggled in the last few months, and particularly people who've really invested money in businesses and cafes and restaurants and galleries, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden that's been completely swept away. So no, very lucky. Yeah,
exactly. We've got to count our blessings and look at the silver linings, and lots of time with our families. I know you've got we youngsters like myself, though, it's a sort of mixed blessing, isn't it? Spending a great deal of time with them. Sometimes that's a wonderful thing, and sometimes you just want to.
Yeah, you got to keep balance in these things. I think it's nice when you. Yes, nice when you haven't seen them for at least a few hours, and then can you come back and it all seems, joyful, all afresh. Whereas if it's every single day in, day out, it's a little hard. We actually had we have a new, well, not quite a newborn anymore. She's now 10 months, but that's been kind of fairly intense through the lockdown process, having a small baby around that's waking up at times you don't want them to, and moaning fairly consistently. So yeah. A little bit harder.
Oh well, that sounds like my 12-year-old, but there we are. And if there's a typhoon that blows through here in about 15 minutes time, that'll be mine getting home from school. They're back in school, thank heavens. I was sitting there at lunchtime today going, it's eerily silent. It's too quiet. This is the calm before the storm, or something. But look, let's launch right into it. And I would love to talk with you today, not just about the typical sort of stuff about your adventures in craftsmanship and tailoring and menswear and so forth. But and it goes back to what we were saying. We're fortunate in that our businesses, our careers allow us to kind of carry on and do what we are doing from home. Though we would like to get out a little bit more, we can do it. And I think there are a lot of people who are during this period are trying to create new businesses, whether they've lost their job or whether it's been, they've been furloughed or found their hours reduced, or simply as you say, being in one of those fields where they're no longer able to work, venture out into the world and work, and they're looking at creating businesses at home, which I think the remarkable thing for me about Permanent Style is that, as I was saying at the introduction, you know, you've been doing that for what, it must be like 12 years or something now, right?
Yeah, 12 and a half years. Yeah, it's a long time now.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you know, if you cast, if one is to cast one's mind back in time to that period, there were a lot of you know, great sort of menswear blogs, and you know, that were focused on different areas of men's style and men's classic style, and very few of them actually have kind of you know, lasted. And those that are still around are probably, you know, the majority of them are still kind of hobbies where you know, I think it's quite remarkable that you've managed to, you know, what was once a kind of side hustle for you, and that, you know, I know you were doing it as you know, on the side while you had your day job. It's a full-time gig, and you've managed to turn what was a passion, I guess, at the start into a career. So, you know, I'm curious to, you know, just explore how that process went, and you know, how you went about transforming something that was, I guess, you know, a hobby at the start into a full-fledged business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of it came quite naturally to me. It wasn't that kind of conscious, not something I set out kind of deliberate to do, which it obviously is a wonderful way if it can happen that way for you. But as you said, I was doing it as a side job while I was also working as a professional journalist and editor. So I guess it came very instinctively to me to write in a very structured way, to write in a fairly professional way, you know, to do things like actually read your blog again before you publish it, to do more interviews, to do more research, to publish very regularly. And I think just because that was what you're doing in your day job anyway, it felt completely natural to do. Whereas I think a lot of people, if they don't have that background, and it seems like, well, this is just a hobby, why does it matter kind of how regularly I do it? Then it's quite hard to take that kind of professional attitude to it. I mean, I'm sure you'd be the same with your background as well. You know, if you start something having worked in publishing for a long time, it would seem bizarre to just publish very erratically and not do things in a fairly systematic way. So I think very early on, I started publishing quite regularly. I think back then, I think a blog was meant to be almost like it was seen as a diary thing. It was meant to be something you did to it every day. And I think for the first couple of weeks, I did do it every day or 5 days a week. And then after a while, I felt like I don't actually have that many good ideas. So I think I switched to 3 days a week, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it's been that ever since, really. And I feel really lucky that I had that kind of structure and training around me from a journalism point of view. I think if I was thinking about someone today, like in their 20s, trying to start up a media platform or a blog or something similar like that, I'd kind of feel it's going to be hard that you haven't had any kind of training in that. You know, if you haven't worked for a big publishing organization, you haven't been specifically trained to write and specifically trained to edit things, and then a lot of things you just absorb from being in a big organization. I think that's quite hard. You know, I think it works really well for other people I know as well. If you've worked even in clothing or in food or other industries, you work at a fairly big place for at least a few years and absorb a lot of those kind of best practices just inevitably from being around people doing that same kind of thing.
Sure. And how, you know, when you started, there certainly wasn't Instagram. I think, you know, Facebook was probably a couple of years old. You know, Twitter was sort of a little random thing that people used to say, you know, random thoughts that popped into their head. So social media was very kind of nascent at the time. I think we probably still had MySpace and Friendster or something back then.
We did.
In fact, without those resources which people use so successfully now, and which obviously you have moved on to using very successfully yourself, how did you go about building an audience and getting that sort of loyal following that has stuck with you for the decade?
I guess a lot of it came a lot through word of mouth and quite organically at the start. A lot of colleagues read it, friends of colleagues read it, they'd recommend it to other people. I would cover brands and tailors and stuff as well, that then tell other people about it. So I guess that's a fairly old-fashioned way that really helped at the start. And then also I think that professionalism helped a lot with things like SEO and on Google search, because you know, back then, you know, that was, you know, completely the dominant way in which you'd find information. And if you were publishing good original content, and you're publishing regularly, and you're getting a certain amount of engagement, then that all did very well with Google. And then obviously snowballs a little bit. The more you get of it, the more they like you. And I think for a few years, certainly on those kind of menswear kind of things, I did quite well. And other sites that were not perhaps done as well, or maybe they just reused content or reused images.
Yep.
Didn't do like things just like, just tagging your images and naming them. Little things like that, I think, that you just do naturally if that's what you do as your day job, I think helped a lot with that kind of that search traffic.
Okay. Now, do you even describe yourself as a blogger now? How do you describe yourself? What do you write on those, when you can get back on an aeroplane and fly overseas? What will you be writing on that little, that little declaration form?
I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? I think we're living in a world which is so much in flux and so many things changing that there's no good names for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I mean, it's not a blog in the sense that that was a very informal and kind of diary-driven thing. It was entirely about one person. It's not really that. It's not really a magazine, because people still think of a magazine as being something physical. Calling it like an online media platform or something sounds ridiculously pretentious. So I don't know what you call it. Online magazine maybe is the closest. I don't know. Blog still kind of does it for a lot of people, I guess. Still, because it is still driven a lot by me and my experiences and my views. So maybe that still fits relatively well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, you've got the books as well, so you could always just use author, which is always high.
Author always sounds good. I think it sounds fairly intellectual, so that's good.
Definitely, and I find writer is loose enough. That kind of covers a multitude of sins. No, I mentioned the word blogger because most of the and you'll remember there were people like Chiara Ferrani and Brian Boy and whatever, who were sort of fashion bloggers, the sort of pioneering fashion bloggers, and then became the sort of pioneering fashion influencers. And now it's all about being an influencer / content creator, which that's a really loose one, like creating content. Okay. But the thing was that those guys, I think, and I remember when I first stumbled across Chiara Ferrani, who was the blonde salad, and she had a blog, such as it was. It was, a few words and lots of photographs of her, but there was a blog there. And then those guys very much transitioned over, I think, particularly with the advent of Instagram, into just being people who would post photographs of themselves on primarily Instagram and talk about their stuff, but also went from being, I guess, commentators on the things that they were personally into it being very commercial and it being very commercially driven. Do you think one of the things that has allowed you to kind of maintain your position is that, I know you are, you're very frank, you're brutally frank sometimes in your appraisals of these experiences that you have in sort of the sartorial and craftsmanship worlds, which is sadly out of the ordinary, and particularly in the sort of influencer sphere, to have honest opinions is rare.
Yeah, and to be public about them, I think definitely there's been so much overlap historically between advertisers and content and magazines. You say that it's quite unusual to have that. Actually, just off point briefly, it reminds me, thinking of things that you could name yourself or put on that form. Writer is definitely good. Author I like because it kind of suggests you're a writer and someone's actually paid you to write something. Like you must have been public. Actually, critic. I think I'd love if someone could, being called a critic, I think is a fantastic kind of name or an accolade, because it suggests like you're, an old-fashioned theatre critic or an old-fashioned film critic, where you take what you do incredibly seriously, and because you take it so seriously, your opinion is really respected. And I think that's a great. I mean, I think if you're a critic, like you don't have many friends, no one really likes you, but they respect what you do and they respect your opinion on things, and that must be. I don't know. That feels like a great thing to achieve, if someone could see me in that kind of light. But actually, it was reminding me of that. It was reminding me of the old film All About Eve.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who the director is, but that's all about an actress, an older actress, takes a young actress under her wing, and about people being duplicitous and two-faced and things. But there's a wonderful kind of theatre critic role in that, of somebody who's very acerbic, has this kind of wonderful wit, and again, nobody likes him, but they have to respect him because he's so frank and kind of and honest in his views. So
do you think you're disliked by the tailoring community? I've actually, I've heard from a lot of very respected tailoring tailors and artisanal shoemakers, etc. That when Simon Crompton speaks, it gets results. So I don't think that's disliked. When the tills ring, everyone loves that sound.
Yeah, I think if you actually have influence, then I think that makes people kind of sort of maybe a little bit scared sometimes of you, but then also really like you if you happen to really like them. I guess it kind of splits people a little bit. So if you really like what you do and you throw your weight behind them and they see results from that, then they absolutely love you. If you dislike somebody or criticize them, or just through omission don't really talk about them because you don't like them that much, they tend to dislike you. And unfortunately, not everyone can be completely objective about it. It's their passion that they do, and people are often kind of emotional about it. And as a result, they tend to tell you you're amazing the entire time if you like their product. And if you don't like their product, then they tend to find every way in which to criticize you or nitpick, or they don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's kind of inevitable, really.
Yes. Someone was just commenting that they love when I talked about the tills ringing and the doorbell rang. That would be my daughter. Hello, girls. But they've learned through 55 of these things to be quiet as dormice as they sneak in, aside from the door ringing. Going back to making the tills ring, which and it's the most important thing, I guess. As I was saying, a lot of people are going to be looking to try to set up their own businesses, and not necessarily a lot of online businesses that can be conducted from home. But I'm curious how you've managed to monetize and make a living out of permanent style, as opposed to it just being a passion. And what would be your advice to people not just certainly not trying to compete necessarily in the same playing field that you're in, but setting up online publications, blogs, whatever you want to call it, and actually trying to make a crust out of it rather than just have fun. What's your top advice, and what are the kind of key learnings, as they say, that you've taken from your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really interesting subject. It's very well timed, because actually just this morning, 9 o'clock this morning, the article we published on Permanent Style was about how to start a menswear business. Okay. Not the kind of media side, my side, but if you're starting a new kind of fashion brand or whatever. And that was an interesting piece I put together with talking to a lot of friends I know who've started small fashion brands and getting their advice and the kind of key mistakes people make. And I'm also just writing a piece that will kind of probably come out in a week or so about how Permanent Style works as a business, because I think people find that really interesting, and they like that transparency of knowing how things work and how we make money. So I guess that breaks down into, a few different ways. One thing is we basically make about half our money through advertising on the website, which is fairly traditional advertising. You pay for a space, it's like a display advert in a magazine. That's the only advertising you can pay for. You can't pay for a link, or you can't pay for content. You can't pay for nothing on content or anything. That's about half of the revenue. And the other half is the collaborations and products we do, which are sometimes through brands. Sometimes we now stock more of them ourselves. Having those two streams of revenue works very well from a business point of view, in that advertising is, because I'm not a massive magazine, it's never going to be charged, it's never going to be big money, but it's very renewable. People have been advertising there for 7-8 years and never changed. So that's great as a media publication or as an individual to have constant income. And then it means that the products have much greater growth potential, I guess, and can make you more money, but they're also much riskier. If you make something that just doesn't sell, you could be left with a lot of stock that's left over. You've got to spend more money to buy the products in the first place, whereas with the advertising, I don't actually have to spend any money. So having those two sides to it kind of works really well. Okay. And I would say that was kind of the reason, like almost 3 years ago now, I was able to do this full time with confidence. You know, I've got to support a family of 5 in London, and the only reason I thought actually I can do this realistically is because those two things are there. And if advertising, you know, reduces, the products are still there, or, you know, vice versa, they can still kind of support each other. And I think of those two, the products is much easier to do, and, you know, a lot of people can launch menswear brands these days. It's not as hard. Access to producers is fairly easy, and like Shopify or distribution are fairly easy. The advertising is a lot harder, but I guess gets more reward in that sense in its renewability. I guess the hardest, I mean, it's much easier when you used to have physical magazines, because you know, like when you were at the Rake, like producing a physical magazine kind of gives you a little bit of status to start with, and then you can go out to people and go, look, we're producing this amazing magazine. It doesn't look beautiful. Do you want to be in there? We're going to send it to X thousand news agents. You know, so you already have that credibility. With a website, it's sort of the advertising comes in tandem with the traffic very slowly. Once you get to a certain size, you can get some adverts. You can start charging more for adverts. And once you get to a particular size, like perhaps Permanent Style is, it's particularly helpful because you've got kind of a reputation where even if you don't mention the advertisers that much, or even if you kind of praise their competitors, they still want to advertise because the audience is still there. Yeah. I think when you're starting out, it's very hard to be that critic and be an honest voice, because if you want advertisers as well, the advertiser is always going to go, well, must talk about us, advertise as well. And I think one of the ways in which some of the Instagram stuff and influencers has been not very helpful is that a lot of brands will come to me these days and say, oh, let's partner on something, or we'd like to collaborate on something. And what they really mean is, we want you to write about us and we'll pay you, either in advertising or some other way. And a lot of that kind of, I guess it's like a lot of the things these days, but all those different ways of working with brands have kind of become mixed up. And it takes you about 10 or 12 emails or half an hour conversation to work out actually what you mean. What do you mean partner with me? What the hell does that mean? Yeah. And it basically is like, oh, we want you to promote us and just tell us what we have to do. Yeah. But to try and explain how that would work and make them understand your model, I think is quite tricky.
Did you have to be, and I won't say in the earlier days, but because that sort of stuff, I think is more recent. It's probably the last maybe 6 or 7 years. But did you have to be careful when, I'm sure, when things started to build and when you had, I mean, I know, even with my measly 5,500 Instagram followers, I get messages from people wanting me to promote their crappy sort of Daniel Wellington style watches and stuff like that. And I have to say, look, much as I'd love a few extra bucks in my pocket, I can't touch that with a pole. I'm terribly sorry, and politely back away. I mean, was there a period there where you were like, oh, that sounds interesting and I could do with that dosh, but really I have to say, no, thank you, Suit Supply, or, whatever it is. Not necessarily Suit Supply,
absolutely. But, yeah. And I think there's definitely a situation like that. And I think it's almost, I'm not sure if it becomes easier because the kind of bigger you get and maybe almost the more credibility and sort of power you have, the more money people will offer, and from bigger brands, as you become, and I'm sure influencers and people on Instagram see this as well, like you become bigger, people really like your account, and then suddenly you get more of these because people want to be on it more, and offer you more money, which kind of seems even more tempting. I mean, it's like anything really. You've just got to be fairly consistent with what you want to do. If you have a day job and you're just messing around as an influencer and you don't care where your reputation is and you wouldn't mind if it stopped next week, then fine, take some cash, and it doesn't matter if there's a negative influence on you and how people see you. But if you're serious about this in the long term, then don't take money for things that you wouldn't want to do, because it's just not going to be worth it. It's very, very short term. I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but I find this a little bit depressing. I find this happening with brands and stuff as well. I think the kind of that influencer attitude is coming off in a lot of brands these days, and that when we both started out writing about a lot of menswear craft brands, there's a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm for these heritage brands. We've been around for a long time, making a great product. No one had told their story necessarily that well.
Yeah.
These days, even some of those people who pretend to be that, they're really just startup companies, and they're looking to make as much profit as they can in 3 years and then sell. You know, and there isn't the same connection or kind of interest in heritage anymore. I don't know. Do you feel that's kind of, you see more of those kind of companies around now than you used to?
Are you talking about like influencer slash company in the way that an influencer can be viewed as a corporate entity?
Even just startup brands. You know, I think so many of the emails I get and contacts I get from brands these days is just people who've clearly jumped on a bandwagon of something which is interesting. You know, they're selling baseball caps, or they're selling, you know, Gurkha trousers, or whatever it is, that's some kind of new trend. So they're doing nothing particularly original. And their styling isn't particularly original, and they just seem to kind of want to do what everyone else is doing and start a brand like this and kind of make it cool, rather than doing anything that's particularly interesting.
I think Gary Vaynerchuk has got a lot to answer for. You know, it's everyone's trying to do this passive income, simple business. I don't think it's just in this field. It's everything from, you know, health supplements to, you know, there's always it's all this drop shipping. Live the hustle. You live in the greatest time to be alive because you've got the internet and you can sell people stuff on the internet and create content. I don't know. I'm really. I think there's that quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald, I think it was, who said, you know, you don't write because you write because you have something to say, not because you have to say. So I don't know. I'm missing, but it's you know, just create content for the. It's something. I need to go back and Google it, and I can't do that because I can't hop off this call at the same time. But yeah, I mean, don't create content for the sake of creating content. You know, it's if you've got something to say and people are going to actually get something out of it, as I hope. You know, I've been doing these conversations, and you know. There's like 55 hours of them that I've done over the last kind of 3+ months, and I haven't made a penny off it, but I'm hoping that the people who will watch it will, you know, gain something out of it, and I have fun chatting with people such as yourself, and I'm gaining something out of it. So I hope that others will, and that's kind of my my be all and end all for it, rather than, you know, how can I monetize this? How can I use it as a funnel or whatever it may be. I don't know.
The watch isn't even in shot. The watch has got to be in shot all the time. Otherwise, it's just no point. You're not going to get the right kind of. Oh, you're wearing a watch. I wanted the. You just need a little kind of advert there, like your watch could be here.
Yes. Greetings, Breitling, Tudor, and everyone else. IWC, love your work. Love your work. No, I find there's less need for a watch when barely leaving the house. But
you know, I would be on your. I haven't seen everyone that you've interviewed, but I'm sure there's a big range of people. Do you think? I wonder how. I don't know if you've, again, just from people you've interviewed or other people you know, like whether you've seen more like young people, 25 or 30, kind of in this kind of world or doing these kind of startups, because I'm always afraid that, you know, I'm almost 40 now. My attitude is, and I've kind of been doing this quite a long time, it's just naturally conservative, and I'm naturally just kind of going, or just dismissing a lot of this kind of stuff without spending the time really looking into whether there's good things going on, or, you know, whether there's more kind of interest behind the noise. Do you think it's easy to get more kind of reaction like that almost when you kind of get older and not give kind of younger things their due credit?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think it works both ways. You've got some companies out there, you know, the big luxury conglomerates have made billions of dollars taking old, heritage-rich, tradition-rich companies and talking about the savoir-faire that they've developed over centuries of heritage and blah blah blah, despite the fact that, you know, the widgets and plastic knickknacks and whatever that have got that brand label stamped on them now, and that's the, you know, the lion's share of their revenue, has nothing to do with, craftsmanship, savoir-faire, artisanal, yada, 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 all of those words that we use quite frequently in our writing. And then on the other hand, you've got your, Yohei Fukudas and whatever who are brand new and have no, don't necessarily have heritage, don't necessarily have some centuries old brand name that they're trading upon, but are 100% legit, too legit to quit, as MC Hammer once put it. So, I think it works both ways. And then you've probably got, the thing going the other way, where it is a hugely heritage-rich company that's hundreds of years old and is struggling to get by and is still working on a very small scale. But, more and more, those companies are just getting bought up by the big luxury giants and then transformed into a commercial leviathan. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There must be, there'll be interesting, like in a few years' time, to look around and see if actually we could write about heritage companies in the way that we did like 10, 12 years ago, because actually there aren't that many that are not part of big groups, or either just haven't survived or they're part of big groups. And actually the companies that are now interesting are the younger ones, like Yohei, like small shoemakers, small tailors, whatever, who are starting up and starting their own traditions. That whole kind of world of heritage has been kind of effectively mined, and have to start all over again. Yeah.
Look, we're going to lose you in about 12 minutes or so, because I know you've got to run off and actually leave the house and do something. Lucky man.
Work. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, and it kind of segues on from what you were just talking about with tradition and everything. The style that we started out at the Rake and that you started out, very much championing with at Permanent Style is very, classic men's style. And I see, the Rake's editorial vision has evolved over the years. What you cover has very much evolved over the years. I look at what you're wearing, particularly over the last few months, when, people have really, are dressing down. How do you see this situation that we're facing? And I know, you had a recent story on Permanent Style about, the new sort of codes of dressing for work from home and for Zoom calls, and so on and so forth. How do you see that affecting, classic, tailored, crafted menswear, which has already been growing more and more, comfortable, I guess, unstructured, less stiff and stuffy, and just more, I guess, influenced by sportswear. I hate the word athleisure, but it's something that has exerted its influence, and 3-4 months, possibly this whole year that we're going to spend sort of working from home. Alan Flusser said to me, the genie is out of the bottle. Once you wear really comfortable stuff for a few months, you're probably not going to go back. What do you think?
So I guess I think first thing is reactions are always extreme, because that's what editorial feeds off, right? So the suit's not dead. The suit's never been dead. It's just the fact that you're accelerating a trend that's already been there for a while. So, before this happened, I knew very, very few professional friends who were lawyers, accountants, consultants, who wore a suit and tie every day. Like, that had been dying for quite a long time. This is going to accelerate that, but at the same time, these kind of trends are never as extreme as you want, as you think. Kindles didn't kill books; they just made people buy books that actually liked books, and killed the part of the market where people didn't actually care about them. People didn't like suits and didn't ever want to wear them, will probably wear them a lot less. People still like wearing suits, will still own suits. They'll probably also wear them less. They might even wear them 50, 70% less, but there will still be suits out there. People will still love suits. Suits might become the equivalent of a tuxedo. That's something extremely smart and elegant. They're certainly still, menswear is so narrow. They're a little new. It's still going to be the thing you want to wear to really make any kind of impact, with going out for dinner or going to an event or whatever. Like, there's no other options. Certainly, sports, there's not an option there. So that will carry on. I think a lot of the kind of classic menswear revolution was about quality and about good style. It wasn't just about tailoring. And I think that carries on, whether you like Scottish knitwear, whether you like, well-tailored trousers, whether you like good leather shoes you look after really well, whether you like a well-cut shirt, You know, all of these things are completely irrelevant and not to do with tailoring. And I think the other thing is that most guys don't understand what a jacket is. And it sounds stupid, but people are so used to wearing a suit and tie, they don't understand how a sports jacket works. Yeah. There was a great thing, I think it was in the Times last week, that a reader kind of alerted me to, where someone said, God, all these Zoom calls where you're at home and no one has to see what you're wearing in trousers. People should invent, like, brands should start selling like a half suit because it only has the jacket, it only has the top half. And like, it's called a jacket.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
People already buy it themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you know, you'll be paying less suits, but I think people still wear jackets. You want a jacket that's going to be soft, it's going to be comfortable. You know, it may have a bit of stretch in there, but it can still be very good quality. It can still be well made, and you're going to be wearing with jeans and chinos and flannels depending on the occasion. And you're going to be wearing it with trainers maybe, but then also with, you know, loafers and with, you know, smart bespoke shoes. You know, there's a full range in there. So I think a lot of people will panic about this kind of thing, but all the brands I've seen so far, they've gone into trouble financially. Were in trouble before the crisis happened. You know, whether it's department stores, small tailors, brands, whatever, like they all had problems beforehand. You know, Brooks Brothers, the basket case for years and years. So that doesn't really surprise me. I think it's accelerating kind of stuff we've kind of seen coming for a while, really. Yeah.
No, look, I've, as I say, I've done like 50 of these things, and I think in 55 and 53 of them, I've worn a white shirt and a blue jacket, and it's brought home to me exactly how many almost identical but just slightly different blue jackets I have. But and this is a lovely linen Tom Sweeney that I'm wearing today. But you know, the thing is, it's a simple thing to throw on, and I have got my Brooks Brothers shorts on underneath here, you know, and no shoes, because this is Zoom life, and as you say, you can't see what's going on down below. But I throw this on, and suddenly I've got these very sort of athletic-looking shoulders, which do not exist in real life. And it's an incredibly simple thing to throw on, and for the duration that I'm speaking to you on the phone, look that little bit more sort of put together, upright, respectable. You know, all of those good things. All of those,
and all the options are there, right? What else could you wear within men's that can do that? You know, there's so few options in men's clothing that there's nothing really else you could do. It's not like women's fashion, which can go from all over the places, from dresses to jackets to knitwear or whatever. They can do the same kind of impression. Like it just wasn't work for men. So yeah, I don't see that going anywhere fast.
What are your key tips? You know, one of the last things I'll ask you, and anyone who's got some questions, please throw those at us, because Simon's got to go in about 6 minutes from now. What are your tips for a good sort of Zoom setup? I see you've sort of framed yourself with the doorway. There's a nice neutral grey kind of, the grey and the camel go very nicely together. It's a good compromise. What other tips do you have, Simon? For
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's weird actually, given how this conversation started. I'm not sure I'm actually that professional about like my social media presence. Certainly on these kind of things. Every time I put the cameras in a position, the camera tells me that I need to be either higher or low, and it's never happy.
Okay.
I used to have it on a little stand and had it higher, and then I got a few comments and would say, "Oh no, it should be lower." So I don't know. I think this is probably a little bit closer, a little bit fish-eyed, maybe a little bit further away.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd go a little bit higher, actually. I'm
a little higher. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's tricky to get right, isn't it? Yeah.
I think the thing is, if people are looking at that kind of stuff and that's what they're focusing on, then the conversation's probably not up to much, right? So, you know, as long as you're having a good conversation, which this has been, thank you.
My pleasure.
You know,
thank you for the time.
That kind of stuff.
Thank you for the time, Simon. It's much appreciated. You know, what sort of parting notes do you have? I'm curious, you know, and as I mentioned, I spoke with the sage Alan Flusser a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of mentioned that you know, most of his customers have been living this whole time out in the Hamptons. They've been saying to him, you know, Alan, I haven't worn trousers in 4 months. It's been sort of shorts and tracksuit pants the whole time. And Alan was saying, yes, I've sort of said to my best customers, look, you guys, if you want me to keep, being able to not go out of business, basically, please show us some love and, throw a few commissions our way and give us a little bit of support. And he said, they've been great about that. What are you hearing from the tailors in London? Are they, are they still getting by? I know the fact that they haven't got the American customers at the moment is sort of a big hit to them.
Yeah,
what else are they saying to you about
that's the big issue there. I think. Yeah, I think again, for this kind of trend, I think for a long time we've seen with a lot of these kind of products and things we cover, like it's really only the top end of the market. It's the luxury end that's kind of survived, and I think that's only accelerating it. So I think a lot of the kind of mid-market kind of bespoke tailors are going to struggle, but it's the bigger names or the more established places, longer client lists, greater loyalty will survive, and they're kind of still doing okay. But yeah, it's a shame with the bespoke tailors. It's really the travel. I mean, most Savile tailors make over half their money in the US, and if they can't get out there and see people, it's just massive. It's like it's all has to be done in person pretty much. Or at least it's hard to do online. You're not going to get quite the same product. So they need to get out there. I need to see people, and they've already missed basically one set of trips in the spring. Doesn't happen again like this autumn. I think it will cause serious problems for them, which is a real shame. And I think that's mostly just tailors. I mean, shirt makers don't have the same problem most of the time because they can fulfill orders usually without fittings. Even like bespoke shoemakers usually can do that as well. So it's really just the tailors that are going to kind of suffer from that point of view. But then also, like I said earlier, I mean, most of the tailors I hear about that are in real trouble have kind of been in trouble for quite a long time, really. They're still selling suits which really haven't seen any kind of type of style for 40 years, that haven't adapted their cut or their structure or anything to trends in the last 20 years. So it's not the only cause, by any means.
Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing that in virtually every business. A lot of the old bulls are being taken down by this lion of a virus that's affecting everything. So let's just hope we're not amongst those old wildebeests that are being killed on the plane, Simon. But anyway, on that uplifting note, it's been really fun speaking with you, my friend. Good to catch up.
Yeah, good.
And take care of yourself, and thank you to everyone who joined us today live or who's watching this back on the recording. Stick with us for more banter with Barker later in the week. Thank you again, Simon Crompton of Permanent Style.
Absolute pleasure, man. See you later.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Bye.